Hello friends, welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to learn about the entire history of human civilizations from ancient times to modern times in just 10 minutes. So let's start. The dawn of humanity. Our story begins in Africa around 300,000 years ago with the evolution of Homo sapiens, the wise man. Life was tough. There were no tools, no weapons, no clothes, not even fire. But our ancestors were smart. They hunted animals for food and used stones as tools. Some anthropologists believe that the first primitive huts appeared around 800,000 years ago. And it was during this period that our ancestors learned to make fire. Cave paintings from the Stone Age show us that they knew how to draw and that they had some knowledge of geometry, perspective, and other concepts. Around 10,000 BCE, there was a revolution in the Stone Age. People learned agriculture, domestication of animals, and settled in one place. Villages began to appear. Two of the oldest known are Jericho, which dates back 9,000 years, and Catalhoyuk, which dates back 7,500 years. Ancient times. With the passage of time, more villages were formed, each with its own language and customs. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Sumerian civilization arose around 2600 BCC. They invented the plow and the wheel. The first cities arose, such as Eridu, Uruk, Lagash, and Kish. A little later, in 2000 BCC, the Akkadians, Amorites, Babylonians, Assyrians, and others continued to inhabit the region. During this time, the first great empires were formed, such as the Babylonian Empire under Hammurabi, who created one of the first written laws, the Code of Hammurabi. Then came the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which extended from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. The Classical Age. At the end of the second millennium BCC, new civilizations flourished, such as the Kingdom of Israel, which gave rise to the religion of Judaism. Then came the Phoenician civilization, which left its mark on the Mediterranean. The Phoenicians were great sailors and merchants and spread their culture throughout the region, invented the alphabet that would later be used by the Greeks, Romans, and other civilizations. But without a doubt, the great protagonists of this era were the Greeks. From 800 BCC until the conquest of Alexander the Great, the Greek kingdoms dominated the Mediterranean. The polis, or city-state, was the center of political, social, and cultural life. Athens was perhaps the most important city, where democracy was born. The Greeks were great philosophers and scientists. They made important discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. They also developed an architectural style that is still admired today. Their legacy in sculpture, literature, poetry, and theater is enormous. But after Alexander the Great, the Greek kingdoms were fragmented and lost their power. The Mediterranean was now dominated by Rome, the Roman Empire. Rome began as a small kingdom in Italy, but soon grew to become a republic. The Romans were great conquerors, and their empire extended throughout the Mediterranean, North Africa, and even part of the Middle East. The Roman Empire reached its greatest territorial extension in the 2nd century AD. Rome was a cultural melting pot. Home to people from all over the empire, Latin became the common language. Roman law, art, architecture, engineering, and literature are still studied today. But internal problems and invasions by Germanic peoples caused the decline of the empire. In the West, the empire was divided into two halves, East and West. The western half was conquered by the Germanic peoples, while the eastern half survived for centuries. The Middle Ages. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Europe was inhabited by different Germanic peoples. At the same time, the Eastern Roman Empire, also called the Byzantine Empire, controlled the Eastern Mediterranean. During this time, the Slavic peoples settled in the region around the Baltic Sea and Scandinavia. The Vikings went on long journeys of exploration and conquest. In Asia, the great empires of China, India, and Persia dominated. The Islamic world expanded rapidly and became a great center of trade and cultural exchange. In America, the Mayan, Aztec, and Inca civilizations flourished, the Renaissance. This period marked a turning point in European history. It began in Italy in the 14th century and spread throughout Europe during the 15th and 16th centuries. It was a time of great artistic and scientific development. Many of the great masters of painting lived during this time, such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Important scientific discoveries were made, such as the heliocentric theory of the solar system. The Renaissance also witnessed the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, which challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. The Age of Exploration. During the 15th and 16th centuries, European powers began exploring and conquering new lands outside of Europe. This age of exploration led to the discovery of new trade routes and the colonization of the Americas. Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, Ferdinand Magellan, and other explorers played an important role in this era. The Industrial Revolution. This period began in Great Britain in the late 18th century and spread to other parts of Europe and North America during the 19th century. It was a time of great technological advancement, including the invention of new machines, such as the steam engine and the power loom. The Industrial Revolution led to major changes in society, including the growth of cities and the emergence of new social classes, the World Wars, and the Great Depression. The 20th century began with 2 world wars and the Great Depression, which caused great suffering and loss of life. The First World War involved the main powers of Europe and lasted from 1914 to 1918. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on Germany, which contributed to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. World War II began in 1939 with the German invasion of Poland and ended in 1945 with the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Cold War. After World War II, the world was divided into 2 superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. The first civilizations emerged around 3000 BCE, with the Sumerians in Mesopotamia. This is generally considered to be the birthplace of human civilization. The Sumerians were followed by the Babylonians and the Assyrians in Mesopotamia. Meanwhile, across the river in what is today known as Egypt, the pharaohs built pyramids and established a culture centered around the Nile River. At the same time, the Indus Valley civilization flourished with cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. And lastly, the Shan and Zhou dynasties emerged in ancient China. These early civilizations were all polytheistic, and most had some form of monarchy. They developed systems of writing, which allowed them to keep records, tell stories, and communicate over long distances. The Mesopotamians invented cuneiform, which is considered to be the first writing system. Around 2000 BCE, civilizations began to grow more complex. In Egypt, the Old Kingdom saw the construction of massive pyramids as well as the development of a complex religious system. In Mesopotamia, the Akkadian Empire was the first to unite much of the region under one ruler. The Indus Valley civilization continued to thrive, with cities that featured advanced urban planning and sanitation systems. In China, the Shang dynasty was known for its bronze work and warrior culture. As the civilizations grew, so did their wealth and power. However, this also led to increased warfare and oppression. The Egyptians expanded their empire into Nubia, and the Mesopotamians conquered the Persians. But eventually these empires would fall due to internal and external pressures. In the meantime, another major civilization arose in India with the Vedic culture. This was followed by the arrival of Buddhism and Jainism, which offered new ways of thinking about the world and how to live in it. Meanwhile, the Greeks in the West developed their own civilization, which would eventually surpass the size and scope of any previous civilization. By 500 BCE, Greece had produced some of the greatest philosophers and scientists the world had ever seen. They also developed a system of government known as democracy, which allowed citizens to participate directly in the political process. While the Greeks were reaching the peak of their power, another civilization was emerging in Central America. The Maya were known for their impressive cities, including Tikal, and their advanced knowledge of mathematics and astronomy. Meanwhile, the Roman Empire was growing rapidly, conquering much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Rome would eventually fall in the 5th century CE, but its legacy would live on in Western culture for centuries to come. During the Middle Ages, Europe was dominated by various kingdoms and empires, including the Byzantine Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. Meanwhile, the Islamic world was at the forefront of scientific and intellectual achievement. By the Renaissance in the 14th century, Europe had begun to emerge from the Middle Ages and rediscover the classical works of Greece and Rome. This period marked a significant shift in European culture and the beginning of the modern era. As the Renaissance continued into the 16th century, new discoveries in science and technology revolutionized the way people thought about the world. The printing press, the telescope, and the microscope all made their debut during this time period, which helped to spread knowledge and ideas more easily than ever before. During the age of exploration in the 15th and 16th centuries, European powers raced to explore and conquer new lands in the Americas, Asia, and Africa. This led to the growth of global trade and the exchange of goods and ideas between different cultures. The 18th century Enlightenment was a period of great intellectual and philosophical achievement, which emphasized reason and individualism. Thinkers like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau had a profound impact on the course of human history. By the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution had begun, which marked a significant shift from an agricultural to an industrial economy. We will start with the classical empires and ideas from around the world between 500 BC and 500 CE. First up, we have ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was an ancient civilization in southeastern Europe from around 800 BC to 146 BC. It was during this time that the world's first democracy was born. Many of our modern ideas about democracy, voting, and citizenship came from the Greeks. They also made huge advancements in philosophy, mathematics, and science. Some of the most famous Greek philosophers included Plato and Aristotle. Greek art and architecture were also highly influential. The Greeks developed the world's first great works of literature, including Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. They also built the world's first great buildings and statues, many of which are still standing today. Let's look at the Roman Republic, and then the Roman Empire. Ancient Rome was founded in 753 BCE and quickly grew into a republic in 509. BCE, Rome developed a system of representative government with elected officials who created laws and made. The Romans were also great engineers and built roads, aqueducts, and other infrastructure projects that helped to support a growing population. This contributed greatly to the development of Western civilization. The Roman Republic eventually turned into the Roman Empire in 27 BCE. The Roman Empire lasted for over 200 years and covered much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. During this time, Rome became the center of the classical world and was known for its wealth, power, and culture. The Romans made many contributions to science, literature, and art, and their influence can be seen in many areas of modern life. Next, let's look at the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire was founded by Cyrus the Great in 550 BC. Cyrus was known for his tolerance and respect for other cultures. He allowed people to choose their own religion and permitted the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. After Cyrus, the empire was ruled by Darius, who implemented a series of reforms that helped to make it the largest empire in the world at the time. He divided the empire into provinces and appointed governors to rule over them. He also standardized the currency in weights and measures. One of the most important contributions of the Persian Empire was its system of roads. The royal road stretched from Susa to Sardis and was used to communicate and transport goods throughout the empire. Moving on, let's look at the Indian civilization. The Indian civilization is one of the oldest in the world. The earliest settlements date back to the Indus Valley civilization in 2800 BCE, from 1500 BCE to 500 CE. India was home to many different empires and kingdoms, including the Vedic Age, the Maurya Empire, and the Gupta Empire. During this time, major world religions such as Buddhism and Hinduism also emerged in India. The Mauryan Empire, which lasted from 322 to 185 BCE, was the first empire to rule over most of the Indian subcontinent. Ashoka the Great was the most famous Mauryan ruler, and he converted to Buddhism after seeing the suffering caused by war. The Gupta Empire, which lasted from 320 to 550 CE, is considered to be a golden age in Indian history. During this time, India made great advancements in science, mathematics, astronomy, and art. The Gupta Empire was also known for its religious tolerance and its support of both Hinduism and Buddhism. Finally, let's look at the Chinese civilization. Ancient China is home to one of the world's oldest continuous cultures. The Chinese civilization dates back to the Shang dynasty in 1600 BCE. During the spring and autumn period, many philosophical schools emerged in China, including Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism. These philosophies had a major impact on Chinese society and helped to shape its culture and values. In 200 BCE, China became a unified empire under the Qin dynasty. The Qin dynasty was followed by the Han dynasty, which lasted from 206 BCE to 220 CE. The Han dynasty is considered to be another golden age in Chinese history, the Middle Ages. When Rome fell in 476 CE, the era of classical antiquity in Europe came to an end, and the Middle Ages began. However, this period witnessed the rise of medieval Europe, the Byzantine Empire, and the spread of Orthodox Christianity. Meanwhile, across the Mediterranean, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, founded the religion of Islam in the 7th century. After his death, the Muslim community, or Ummah, expanded into North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia, establishing several caliphates that lasted for centuries. During the Islamic Golden Age, Muslims made significant contributions to science, medicine, and architecture. At the same time, medieval kingdoms like Mali, Ghana, and Songhai flourished in Africa. In Europe, the Viking Age gave way to feudalism, with kings granting land to nobles in exchange for military service. This era also saw the emergence of knights and castles, as well as the Crusades, a series of religious wars aimed at reclaiming the Holy Land from Muslim rule. Meanwhile, the Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire in history, was sweeping across Asia and Eastern Europe. By the end of the Middle Ages, the Mongol conquests would reach all the way to the Pacific Ocean. The Renaissance and Reformation. As the Middle Ages drew to a close, Europe entered a period of profound transformation known as the Renaissance. This cultural movement marked a renewed interest in classical art, literature, and philosophy, leading to a surge in creativity and innovation. During this time, great works of art were produced, scientific discoveries were made, and new ideas about the world and humanity's place in it were explored. However, not everyone embraced the changes brought by the Renaissance. The Reformation, a religious movement initiated by Martin Luther, challenged the authority of the Roman Catholic Church and resulted in the emergence of Protestantism. This upheaval had far-reaching consequences, weakening the Church's power and leading to increased religious tensions across Europe. Age of exploration and discovery. The 15th and 16th centuries witnessed an era of exploration and discovery as European powers embarked on voyages to explore the unknown. Driven by a desire for wealth, trade, and the spread of Christianity, explorers like Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Ferdinand Magellan ventured into uncharted territories. Their discoveries of new lands and sea routes opened up new possibilities for trade, colonization, and cultural exchange. The Age of Exploration had a profound impact on the course of history, leading to the rise of global empires, exchange of goods and ideas between different cultures, and the lasting influence of European powers on world affairs. Scientific Revolution. The Scientific Revolution was a transformative period in history that began in the 16th century and continued into the 17th and 18th centuries. It was a time when new methods of observation and experimentation led to a revolution in scientific thought and discovery. This revolution started in Europe and later spread to other parts of the world. Key figures like Nicolaus Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, and Isaac Newton developed groundbreaking theories that challenged long-held beliefs and changed the way we understand the universe. The scientific revolution laid the foundation for modern science and had a profound impact on various aspects of human knowledge, including astronomy, physics, and mathematics. It marked a shift from traditional ways of thinking to a more empirical and evidence-based approach to understanding the natural world. The Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a significant period of technological advancement and societal change that began in Great Britain in the late 10th century and spread to other parts of Europe and North America during the 19th century. This revolution was characterized by the introduction of machines and new sources of energy, such as steam power, that led to mass production and increased efficiency in manufacturing. It started with the textile industry and later expanded to other sectors like iron and steel production, transportation, and communication. The Industrial Revolution had profound effects on society, including the growth of cities, the rise of new social classes, and changes in labor patterns and living conditions. It marked a shift from agrarian economies to industrial economies, and laid the foundation for modern capitalism and globalization. World Wars and the Great Depression. The 20th century was a tumultuous period marked by two devastating world wars and the Great Depression, which had a profound impact on the course of human history. World War I, which began in 1914, was a global conflict that involved the major powers of the world and resulted in unprecedented levels of death and destruction. The war had far-reaching consequences, including the collapse of empires, the rise of new ideologies, and the redrawing of borders in Europe. The Great Depression, which started in 1929, was a severe worldwide economic downturn that had a devastating impact on financial markets, industries, and everyday life. It led to widespread unemployment, poverty, and social unrest, and had a profound impact on the political landscape, contributing to the rise of authoritarian regimes in some countries. World War II, which began in 1939, was an even more destructive conflict that involved the Axis powers and the Allies. It was characterized by atrocities such as the Holocaust and the use of atomic weapons, which raised ethical and moral questions about the conduct of warfare. The war resulted in the deaths of millions and had a profound impact on the geopolitical order, leading to the emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers and the beginning of the Cold War. Post-war era and decolonization. Following World War II, the world entered a new era marked by significant political, economic, and social changes. One notable development was the process of decolonization, which saw many countries in Africa and Asia gain independence from their colonial rulers. This movement was driven by growing nationalist sentiments and a desire for self-determination. The post-war period also witnessed the formation of the United Nations, which aimed to promote international cooperation and peace. Additionally, the era was shaped by the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, which led to an arms race, the space race, and proxy conflicts around the world. Modern times. As we entered the 21st century, we find ourselves in a world that is rapidly changing and evolving. Globalization, technology, and interconnectedness have become defining features of modern times. The rise of digital communication, social media, and the internet has transformed the way we interact, do business, and access information. However, these advancements have also brought about new challenges such as privacy concerns, cybersecurity threats, and the need for digital literacy. Furthermore, issues related to climate change, sustainability, and global health pandemics continue to pose significant challenges for humanity. Despite these challenges, we also live in an era of unprecedented opportunities and advancements in various fields. Medical science has made remarkable progress, improving healthcare and life expectancy worldwide. Space exploration and technology have opened up new frontiers for discovery and innovation, and efforts are being made to address pressing global issues through international cooperation and technological advancements. Moreover, the modern era has seen a growing emphasis on individual rights, social justice, and gender equality. Movements and organizations continue to fight for the recognition and protection of human rights, equality, and diversity. From 1492 to 1789, the Renaissance in Europe gave way to some pretty stellar art, namely Da Vinci and Michelangelo. While the scientific community was busy copying the works of ancient Greek scholars and making their own discoveries, whoop-de-doo, Galileo Copernicus. The printing press was invented, which made books cheaper and more accessible to the general public. Gutenberg, you sexy beast. With the rise of global trade and exploration spurred on by new inventions like the astrolabe and caravel, Europeans set sail to discover new trade routes to the east. Columbus, Vasco, da Gama, and Magellan were among the first Europeans to make it to India via the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. They also helped to kick off the age of exploration, colonization, and enslavement of the Americas and other parts of the world. Boom. During this time period, there was a lot of back and forth between the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere, the Columbian Exchange, if you will. The Renaissance and Reformation in Europe led to questioning long-held religious and political beliefs and ideals. This questioning of authority and emphasis on reason would go on to influence the scientific revolution and Enlightenment. Science and reason over blind acceptance of religious doctrine and tradition. Democracy, separation of powers, human rights, individual liberty, the social contract. Thinkers like Locke and Newton paved the way for modern Western conceptions of government and society. From 1789 to 1848, the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution were kind of a big deal. Seriously, these two events overshadowed everything else that happened during this period. The French Revolution was a time of great upheaval and change in France and Europe. It was a period marked by radical political and social reform, and by the establishment of the French Republic in 1792 and the First French Empire in 1804. Liberty, equality, fraternity, or death. The French Revolution had a major impact on the course of European history and the modern world. It helped to bring about the end of feudalism and the absolute monarchy, and it inspired other revolutionary movements around the world. French centers of art, culture, and fashion took off during this period, as did the arts in Germany and England. Beethoven, anyone? Romanticism swept Europe and the Americas with its emphasis on emotion, imagination, and individualism. Mary Shelley, anyone? Meanwhile, the Industrial Revolution began in Great Britain in the late 18th century and lasted until the early 20th century. It was a period of rapid technological advancement and industrialization that began with the invention of new machines like the steam engine and the power loom. These inventions led to mass production of goods, increased efficiency, and new forms of energy like steam power. The Industrial Revolution had a profound impact on society, leading to the rise of factories, urbanization, and new social classes. The middle class and proletariat, anyone? Eventually, the Industrial Revolution spread to other parts of Europe and the United States, and eventually the world. From 1848 to the present day, this period covers a lot of ground, but here are some highlights. Following the revolutions of 1848, Europe was ripe for change. Imperialism, nationalism, and the continued push for democracy and individual liberties dominated the latter half of the 19th century. Think Realpolitik and Otto von Bismarck. Meanwhile, the United States became a world power following the Spanish-American War and began to flex its newfound global muscle. Not everyone was happy about this turn of events, namely the people living in the newly acquired territories. The US is now a major player on the world stage. From 1914 to 1918, World War I raged across Europe and the Middle East. It was a conflict between the Central Powers and the Triple Entente. Trench warfare, new technologies like tanks and poison gas, and the collapse of empires. The Russian Revolution and the rise of communism were major outcomes of the war. World War II followed shortly thereafter, from 1939 to 1945. It was a global war that involved most of the world's nations and resulted in an estimated 70 to 85 million fatalities. The war in Europe ended with the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany in May of 1945. But fighting continued between the Allies and Japan until September 2nd, when the Japanese emperor announced his acceptance of the terms of the peace. To this day, World War II remains the deadliest conflict in human history. In the aftermath of World War II, the United Nations was formed in the hopes of preventing future conflicts. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union dominated the second half of the 20th century. Both sides were locked in a nuclear standoff and competed for global dominance. The arms race, space race, proxy wars, and the threat of mutually assured destruction defined this era. Revolutions and empires, 1:30 to 1. 45 hours. The American Revolution and the French Revolution start the ball rolling. Then the Industrial Revolution takes off, powered by factories, steam engines, and the concentration of people in urban areas. This leads to the rise of the British Empire, which at its peak is literally called the empire on which the sun never sets. There is also the small matter of nationalism, which results in the unification of Italy and Germany. Meanwhile, colonization is still going strong in Asia and Africa. World War I, 1914 to 1918. After a century of relative peace in Europe, it all kicks off again with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria. Within a year, the whole continent is at war. New technologies like poison gas and tanks are deployed, and millions die. Eventually, the exhausted Europeans just want it to end. So they impose harsh reparations on Germany and create the League of Nations to try and ensure their woe and be another. The Russian Revolution, 1917 to 1921, while World War I is still raging, the Tsars of Russia lose the throne. A civil war breaks out, and eventually the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, win and establish the world's first communist state. Lenin dies in 1924 and is succeeded by Joseph Stalin, who rules over the Soviet Union with an iron fist until his death in 1953. The Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. After the excesses of the 1920s, the American stock market crashes and the whole world economy goes into a tailspin. Unemployment soars, trade collapses, and people lose faith in capitalism. Governments scramble to find solutions, but it's a decade of hardship for most. World War II, 1939 to 1945. Having failed to prevent the last war, the League of Nations basically just watches as European powers gear up for another. When Germany invades Poland, the Allies declare war, and the whole world is soon involved in the deadliest conflict in history. New weapons like the atomic bomb are developed and used, and in the end, it's the Allies who triumph. But not before 40 to 85 million people are dead. In the aftermath, the United Nations is formed, and the world is divided between the capitalist, democratic countries of the West and the communist authoritarian nations of the East. Decolonization, 1945 to 1991. As the colonized peoples of the world see the might of the Western powers in action during World War II, they begin to demand independence. Over the next few decades, one by one, they get it. The process is often fraught with violence, but eventually the era of European colonialism comes to an end. The Cold War, 1947 to 1991. Although there is no formal alliance, the United States and the Soviet Union become the world's two superpowers. They vie for influence around the world, support opposing sides in various conflicts, and maintain a nuclear arms race that could destroy the world. But after a period of intense hostility, things begin to thaw. In the 1970s, a policy of IH adopted, and in the 1980s, the two leaders begin to recognize the futility of their conflict and the threat posed by mutually assured destruction. When the Soviet Union collapses in 1991, the Cold War ends and a new era begins. Globalization, 1991, present. Over the past 30 years, the world has shrunk and become ever more interconnected through instantaneous global communication, cheap international travel, and the internet. The world economy has grown, and with it, the power of multinational corporations. We start with World War I, where for the first time in history, soldiers fought in trenches. They would stay in these trenches for months at a time, fighting off other soldiers who were only a few feet away. This led to the creation of the League of Nations, the first ever international organization dedicated to keeping the peace. But it didn't work, and in 1939, World War II began. Led by the evil war machine of Hitler, it was the deadliest conflict in human history. It featured the Holocaust, the systematic murder of millions of Jews and other undesirables by the Nazis. And it ended with the United States dropping an atomic bomb on Japan, killing over 80,000 people. After this, we have the Cold War, a period of tension between the USA and the USSR. Both sides amassed huge nuclear arsenals, and the world is on the brink of annihilation several times. And then there's decolonization. As European powers lost their grip on their colonies, India gained independence in 1947, and many African nations followed suit. And finally, we have the modern world order. The United Nations was formed after World War II to prevent another global. 40,000 years ago, a group of nomadic hunter-gatherers developed the world's first settlements. They built crude tools, weapons, and structures from readily available materials like stone, wood, and clay. They domesticated animals and cultivated the first rudimentary crops. This marked the beginning of civilization, the dawn of the Neolithic Revolution. 9,000 years later, the ancient Egyptians constructed monumental pyramids that stood as eternal tombs for their pharaohs. Their influence on the rise of human civilization was profound. 3,000 years after that, the Greeks emerged from the classical era. They emphasized reason and logic, giving birth to philosophy and scientific thought. Their contributions to art, literature, and architecture continue to inspire awe and imitation today. 2,000 years after that, the Roman Empire reached its peak. Its impressive roads, aqueducts, and public works inspired future generations of engineers. Roman law laid the foundation for many modern legal systems, and their republican form of government influenced the creation of the United States. Meanwhile, across the vast ocean, the Aztecs built a magnificent city in the heart of the Aztec Empire. Tenochtitlan, their capital, was a marvel of urban planning with floating gardens and imposing temples. The Inca expanded their empire to become the largest in pre-Columbian America. They developed a unique system of knotted ropes to record history and used a sophisticated form of accounting to manage their vast territories. 15,000 years after the first primitive settlements, the Industrial Revolution swept through Europe. This period witnessed unprecedented technological advancements, including the steam engine and the power loom. It marked a shift from hand production to machine production, and laid the foundation for modern factories and mass production. 100 years later, the world was dramatically changed by two devastating world wars. They resulted in immense loss of life and upheaval on a global scale. But in their aftermath, new international organizations were formed, including the United Nations, aiming to prevent future conflicts and promote international cooperation. Following this dark chapter, the world entered a period of decolonization. Many countries gained independence from their colonial rulers, leading to the emergence of new nations on the global map. In the latter half of the 20th century, the world was transformed by the digital revolution. The internet, computers, and smartphones shrunk the globe, connecting people like never before. Space travel became a reality as humans set foot on the moon. Private companies now aspire to colonize Mars. The late 20th and early 21st centuries have been shaped by globalization. The world economy, culture, and communication have become increasingly interconnected. Major corporations have a global reach, and international agreements aim to address shared challenges like climate change. As we hurtle towards the year 2050, several issues are on the horizon. Climate change poses a significant threat with rising sea levels and extreme weather events. Sustainability has become a critical concern as humanity grapples with resource depletion and environmental degradation. Artificial intelligence, once a futuristic fantasy, is now a present-day reality, raising ethical questions and concerns about job displacement. We stand at a pivotal moment in history. The decisions we make today will have profound implications for the future of humanity. Will we harness the power of technology for good, or will it be our undoing? Only time will tell what the next chapter of our story will look like. All of human history has been a relentless march forward. From the first primitive tools to the digital devices that define our current era, each invention and innovation has been a stepping stone to where we are today. The story of human civilization is one of constant evolution, adaptation, and progress. It's a tale told through the grand monuments of the ancient world, the artistic masterpieces of the Renaissance, the scientific breakthroughs that illuminated the darkness of ignorance, and the industrial innovations that powered the modern age. It's a story that reflects the insatiable curiosity of humanity, our drive to explore, to understand, and to conquer. From the stars in the sky to the depths of the ocean, human beings have dared to venture forth into the unknown. In doing so, they have expanded the boundaries of knowledge, bringing back wonders and knowledge that have shaped civilizations. Throughout this epic journey, there have been countless stories of triumph and tragedy, of innovation and destruction, of progress and setbacks. Yet despite the challenges and the tribulations, the story of human civilization is ultimately one of hope, resilience, and the enduring spirit of exploration. As we stand on the threshold of the future, it's essential to look back and appreciate the incredible journey that has brought us to this point. For in understanding our past, we gain insights into the present, and we equip ourselves to navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. This has been the entire history of human civilizations, from ancient times to modern day. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. We've got lots of interesting videos coming up, so stay tuned.